Oh, an interloper down here in the cellar. Well, you don't look like the type to go blabbing to any adventurers about the little old Mind Flayer setting up house underneath the town, like the last poor fool who wandered down here. So why don't we have a little chat instead of a snack? Welcome to Tentacles and Turtlenecks, where a homeless Mind Flayer takes a break from secretly converting the basement of this tavern into his new lair, just long enough to have a friendly conversation about D&D. There are few things quite so frustrating to a new dungeon master as an untouchable hero, and I don't mean the kind in full plate armor and a shield covered in protective magic to push that armor class so far through the roof of the dungeon it springs a leak. You can get around all that just fine with some well-targeted saving throws, obnoxious ability checks, see episode 3, some difficult terrain, and a healthy dose of, oops, we went for the rest of your party instead. So if that was the question you had, then it's answered in the introduction, you're welcome. No, I mean the ones you actually can't touch, because they're flying faster than a solar on its way to scold the party of murder hobos, or teleporting around quicker than a blink dog trying to figure out where you hid the kibble, or just plain more slippery than a kuatoa after a bath. Is there really anything you can do about an adventurer who can soar through the skies, raining arrows and magic missiles down from above like a dragon swooping in to breathe fire? Or are you doomed to sit back and watch as your forces are helplessly obliterated like your patience with all of these incredibly contrived monster similes? Today's topic may have gone over your head before, but it's time for a more down-to-earth discussion about... Oh, I'm sorry. The jokes are terrible, I know. I just ate the brain of a would-be stand-up comedian who blundered down into the cellars I'm renovating here after he was booed off of the stage. As I was saying, a discussion about evasiveness and flight. Let's start with evasiveness in general, since it will naturally come up in any more narrow conversation. There are many ways for an adventurer to be incredibly difficult to pin down, whether that is through the high armor class example I led with, features to slip away like a rogue's cunning action to disengage or a wizard's misty step, the ability to displace threats like a high-strength warrior using a shove or grapple to push or pull foes around, or a psionic hero shifting the baddies with the telekinetic feat, or extreme mobility like flight or bonus action dashes from a rogue or monk, or any of the other myriad options out there. It can sometimes feel frustrating to deal with them all when all you want to do is pose a meaningful threat enough to scare some resources, say spell slots or hit points, out of the party. But before we look at the ways of counteracting any of this, we really need to take an honest look in the mirror. We may be the ones in command of the legions of fiends out there who want to destroy the heroes, but ultimately we should be cheering for them. When the good guys get to do amazing, epic things, they get excited about it and have a good time, and happy heroes are the kind that will stick around and play for the long haul. So don't take on an adversarial attitude trying to work out each and every way to shut down what they can do. Instead, lean into it and laugh along with them. Yes, you need to counteract their talents to some extent to be properly scary, but you also want to egg them on by sending that horde of kobolds to fruitlessly bash away on the paladin's armor. We're all here to have fun and eat brains, right? Now, most of these methods of avoiding your minions only go so far, applying to one member of the group and not the entire party as a whole. The paladin might be hard to hit with attacks, but the rest of them aren't. The rogue might be able to hit and run, but that paladin is stuck in place, swarmed by monsters. The wizard might be able to teleport to safety, but they've only got so many spell slots, and you've got a half a dozen encounters planned. As long as you're mixing up your monster selections, sooner or later you'll wear them all down with one thing or another. So just keep at it and be sure to run enough encounters and keep up the pacing. See episode 1. When mixing up that selection, it's important to have a good variety. If all of your monsters are simple, dumb, melee-only brutes, it's no wonder that the archer and sorcerer are never in any danger, happily firing away from behind a 100-foot gap of safety. You need to challenge each member of the party from time to time. Toss in some enemies who can fight from range and shoot back at them. Have some sneaky monsters ambush the back lines from behind. Throw in some of your own slippery monsters who can burrow or fly. Pick a variety of attack methods, from attack rolls to all kinds of saving throws, to cover every type of player character strength and weakness. And utilize the most potent force of all, terrain. You can rein in those long-range troublemakers simply by putting them in a confined space. Having spells that can reach hundreds of feet away or the ability to cover 90 feet in 6 seconds doesn't matter much when the cavern chamber is only 50 feet across, or that narrow passage is only 10 feet wide with your own friends blocking the way and providing the enemy's cover. Ceilings will keep your climbing, jumping, and flying lot where you want them, and difficult terrain will help you slow down the melee juggernauts. Take advantage of cover and elevation to place some enemies in hard-to-deal-with positions on top of all of that, and now you've got the recipe for a pinned-down group of heroes ready to panic when their usual evasiveness won't save them. Use one or two of these ideas in every encounter to put some pressure on members of the party while others are given a chance to show off. Switch it up at the next one. This will not only help you tax the resources of everyone across the board, but it'll also make sure everyone gets a turn in the spotlight and help encourage teamwork and strategy, the kinds of skills you want to foster so you can absorb them when you feast on their minds. Now, let's look at a specific case, one that tends to be especially frustrating for newer DMs. Flight. Spellcasters with access to the fly spell, treasure hunters who have uncovered flying carpets and magic broomsticks, and the perpetually airborne adventurers like the Aarakocra are notoriously difficult to deal with. But each can be handled in its own way, and you may be relieved to know that they're not nearly as troublesome as you may have been led to believe. So go ahead and enjoy the breeze while you sleep tonight. Nobody's flying through the window of your evil tower. The fly spell is probably the simplest one. Just let them use it. Great, now they're down a 3rd level spell slot. That's one less fireball or lightning bolt flying your way, or one less swarm of monsters mindlessly drooling to a hypnotic pattern or running away terrified by a casting of fear. They're getting a powerful effect, yes, but at a steep cost. And sapping those spell slots is why you sent those monsters after them in the first place, so this is really nothing but a win. And it's not as if you can't still pose a threat here. Fly requires concentration, so they're just one nasty arrow, incapacitating spell or poison, or an unexpected buffeting from the environment away from losing their focus and rapidly finding themselves painfully back on the ground. Magic items that provide flight are also simple to rein in. Just don't give them out. No, seriously, if you don't want to deal with permanently available flight in your encounters, just don't give it to them. It's really that simple. As for what to do if you've already made such things available, well, there's nothing gluing their bottoms to that broomstick, so knock them prone, grapple them as they fly by, or just toss anything their way that might displace them and then cover your eyes at the horror, or, well, maybe watch through your spread fingers as they crash to the ground. Let's just hope they don't land on their heads and ruin our lunch. Now, winged adventurers can be a little more problematic, but I say this only from a design standpoint. The other methods of flight have a cost, spell slots, and a minimum level, a high-demand slot in the case of fly, or access to a powerful magic item, one which you gave them in lieu of some other nifty bit of treasure that they could have found and been using that was just as amazing. In the case of bird people, yes, there was a choice made at birth to have flight instead of some other distinctive trait, but few other ancestral features are so impactful. I personally don't like the way this is essentially flight given away for free when other methods fit the mold of encounter design much better. No other built-in first-level ability comes anywhere close to replicating a no-concentration version of an at-will third-level spell. Permanently available flight at first level and throughout Tier 1 can be incredibly game-warping in a way that can honestly be exhausting to a DM. Sure, I've given you a pile of ways of counteracting it, and I'm going to give you more in a moment, but the fact that you need to think that hard about it, and for every single encounter, and the fact that the monsters with neat abilities to deal with it are few and far between at the earliest levels where you're most likely to see those simple, dumb, melee-only brutes, is reason enough for me to tell you this. It's okay to not want to deal with the headache and not approve characters who can innately fly. You are spending your limited time and efforts dungeon mastering because you enjoy it, and if this one hurdle takes away your enjoyment, then just get rid of it. You're not stifling the creativity of your players or potential adventurers by doing so. There are literally thousands of other characters waiting to be made. All that said, it's really not that bad. Most of the time, new DMs find flight problematic only because they're running a pre-written adventure exactly by the book, and the short-sighted author of that book never bothered to consider that the heroes taking on the quest might have wings. But it only takes a handful of minor changes from what's on the page to solve the problem. All those suggestions from before to restrict evasiveness in general also apply to flyers, and they're often in even more danger than their companions on the ground. If a lucky arrow or firebolt manages to knock out the wizard down below, they're only a visit from the party's cleric away from being back in the fight. In contrast, that flying adventurer is now plummeting to the earth, guaranteeing an automatically failed death save on impact from taking damage while already knocked out. They're also pretty likely to have flown dangerously far away from the rest of the group, and might not be in a position where they can be quickly rescued. Remember that any time a flyer goes down this way, they're just a single one on the die away from instant death on the next turn, and possibly in an easy position to meet their end even sooner when those enemies who are nearby decide to finish them off before the cleric finishes running over. For daredevils, the risk is even greater. Let's consider those who want to pick up enemies, fly them into the air, and then drop them to their doom. First, consider how risky this play really is. It requires moving up to the enemy, successfully grappling them, and then moving upward at only half speed. Getting high enough to do any real damage from a fall is going to take several turns, and at any time during that ascent, the enemy could simply return the favor and grapple them back or knock them prone, and this would set the flyer's speed to 0 and cause them to immediately fall together to the ground. And actually, this whole 0 speed or knocked prone thing is a really solid way to quickly kill nearly any winged creature, whether done with a spell, feature, or basic grapple or shove. Just imagine how deadly something as simple as a random enemy archer who happened to have studied the trip attack maneuver would be to your average avian adventurer. As for flight warping exploration encounters, there are ways to handle that as well. First of all, the rest of the party probably can't fly, so even if that one person can soar up the cliff or over the chasm, that doesn't get anyone else by the obstacle without some extra steps. And you can always complicate dangerous environments. Cold or powerful wind might make flying a deadly proposition and impose the need for strength and athletics checks to even make it through. Narrow passages make flying to, say, the top of a cave entirely impossible. And attempts to ferry others is no simple task, likely calling for a successful ability check from both flyer and passenger, with the stakes being a very long way down. I hope this has helped you pin down your worries about especially slippery foes. If you found this helpful, leave a like down below, upstairs now, I guess, with a tavern keep. And if you've got any questions or your own suggestions for how to handle extra evasive adversaries, feel free to leave a comment. If you'd like to hear more like this, you can subscribe or come back for the greatest hits on the playlist. And don't even think about escaping without catching another episode, because once this new layer is complete, endless maze and all, you won't be going anywhere ever again. I think I need an air freshener down here or something for all this dust. When is the last time that tavern keep swept?